as in Tellus's ads, we've got an animal in a blank, barren space. This animal's name is Beulah, and she stands still in the center of an empty swimming pool, which is in Brooklyn, it turns out. There are humans here, though, unlike in Tellus's ads. There are 6 of them. So just for example, there is Steve. I'm sorry, I don't remember who's who out of these images, but one of the humans sitting in those chairs is named Steve, and he is scared. He does not like being in her presence. There is Nathan, who is uncomfortable and disinterested and just sort of tentatively backs at Beulah. And then there is Chris, in contrast, who greets her by name and continues to address her throughout their time together. For example, quote, "You are beautiful," he tells her. He must be the one in the bottom right, because he presses an ear to her side and says, quote, "Like the ocean in there, huh?" He feels a foot and says, quote, "Size 30 shoe, huh?" Quote, "I hear you," he says, apropos of nothing audible. And at the end of the visit, Chris takes his leave. Quote, "All right, girl, I'm out. Thank you." Then there's Brant, who gives Beulah a perfunctory greeting, then launches into a discussion of the, quote, "very important role that elephants have played in his life, chiefly Jean de Brunhoff's Babar and Dr. Seuss's Horton." I think it's fair to say that Brant encounters not Beulah, but the elephant, capital E elephant, the figure of the elephant, a kind of pastiche of cartoon characters and other representations. So we might say that Brant doesn't really see Beulah, but in fact not one of the humans sees Beulah. They are all blind. Though Tellus hopes, the artist hopes, they are not figures of the blind. So in the familiar fable of the blind man and the elephant, we've got 6 blind men touching 6 different parts of the elephant's body. One touches the tail and says, "Ah, the elephant is like a snake." The other like a rope. And another touches the trunk and says, "Oh no, this guy's like a snake." And one touches the foot and says, "Oh, it's like a tree." And the moral of the story is that truth is relative. Everyone has a different perspective. In that fable, the 6 blind men are figures of the blind. They're not, individuals, they're instruments to teach us a lesson. And Tellus says, in an interview with Tellus, he says, "I wanted to reply to that fable. I wanted to take actual humans who are blind, put them into a similar situation, but show them in their individuality." Interestingly, in the same interview, the artist agrees to a description of both Beulah and the original parable as, quote, "devices." So in Tellus's film, it seems Beulah is a tool. The blind move from figures to particular individuals possessed of subjective experiences of the world. The elephant, however, stands still. Her status is made clear in the credits, where her name does not appear, and instead all creatures great and small are credited with animal wrangling. So the fable of the blind man and the elephant is critiqued, but another fable persists. Viewers are expected to forget Beulah's subordination. I want to more or less end by arguing that the fact that Tellus's film ends up telling a fable is more disappointing than the fact that Tellus's ads do the same. And not only because Tellus is working in the world of high art, while Tellus's project is unambiguously profit-driven. To go back to Derrida, he does not believe deep down that the philosophers and theoreticians in the second category have never been looked at by an animal that addressed them. It's just that, quote, "they made of the animal a theorem, something seen and not seeing. They have denied it as much as misunderstood it, and this constitutes, quote, an immense disavowal." I want to say that what is disavowed when Tellus makes Beulah a theorem is that the intersections, not between the gazes of Beulah and Steve and Nathan and Chris and Brant, etc., but between the subjective experiences of Beulah and these particular humans. In voiceover, Chris reflects on his experience. Some people pity him, and this, connects to what Sonora was telling us about. They want to help, but they also, quote, "feel as if your life is less than the average person, less than theirs." Others treat him as a figure of fascination. Quote, "Every day I get stopped on the street either out of curiosity, pity, fascination. I think we could say, likewise, that some people pity other animals because they supposedly lack speech or reason or whatever. Many people, maybe most people, consider the lives of animals as less than human lives, as proper subjects of human whims, of wrangling, and at the same time as fascinating figures. So I want to say that both Beulah and Chris have something to tell us about the structure and experience of subordination, and about how the experiences of humans with so-called disabilities might intersect with the experiences of other animals. But this story is not acknowledged by Tellez. One more participant, Caleb. I think he and Beulah also have something to tell us. Caleb says, quote, "Some people say they'd like to try being blind for a day, but it's not the same. If you cover your eyes for a day or a week, still, you know, once you uncover your eyes, you'll see." Caleb insists on the unknowability of his experience, where Tellez, for example, pretends that cheetah cubs and hippopotamus calves and spider monkeys can be intimately known. I think Caleb's insistence on that unknowability is especially instructive because of how often blindness is used as a figure, as if it is an experience that is accessible to sighted writers. And over the course of writing this essay, I came across many examples of animals, or critics who are also animals, using blindness as a metaphor, or the figure of the blind spot, to describe things that supposedly they see but others miss. I'm going to wrap up just with one more paragraph. I want to say that what's forgotten in Tellez's fable as well is basic elephant physiology, which happens to be really salient to this discussion. So I'm borrowing from Dan Wiley, who wrote the elephant book in the reaction series here. He writes, "Perhaps least important to the elephant are the eyes. So to we visually orientated humans, it's the eye that most often seems to connect us." Now, Wiley doesn't make blindness a figure here. He forgets it exists. He assumes that human experience is sighted experience. But he also describes another point of intersection between Beulah and her co-stars. He also says, quote, "Elephants listen to each other. Beyond the obvious elephant trumpeting, deep belly rumbles also communicate. And beneath that again, infrasonic communication happens, below the range of human hearing, over hundreds of meters, possibly even kilometers." So here's a reminder that there are other